And welcome back to the State Champs Power Play podcast presented by National Coney Island, and it's also brought to you by Northwestern Tech, the HVAC school that works. I'm Jonathon Kidd along with Sean Belizean. Sean, how are you today?
Excellent. It's a pleasure to be here, John, and it's a pleasure to have longtime MHSAA coach, a guy that won a state title last year, Craig Staskowski, in the house to help us talk a little bit about the playoffs. Coach Stas, how are you, buddy?
Good. Thanks for having me, guys.
Hey, listen, that's a perfect place to start, if I may, John. You're a guy, you know what the grind is. You know how it's a new season. Throw everything out the window. Can you talk about the grind that is the playoffs?
Yeah, it's difficult. You know, the thing about it is I know sometimes people get caught up in, you know, what teams did during the season. And obviously, their record is a giant indicator on what kind of season they had. But, you know, there are so many good coaches in high school hockey. And, you know, it's just one game. So that one game, and we saw it, you know, a few years back with Farmington against Cranbrook. Cranbrook had 3 kids that were committed to Division I programs at the time and got beat by an incredible goaltending performance by John Letham. And so, like, just that you never know. So, like, every single game, you got to be prepared, ready to go, and each step, you know, it's for most teams, it's 6 to 5 steps to get there. So it's a difficult grind for sure.
So today on the State Champs Power Play podcast, we're going to be previewing the playoffs. That starts next week. We're going to go from Division III, Division II, and Division I, and then at the end of the podcast, me, Sean, and Craig will predict our state champions. So we'll start in Division III. Sean, we've talked many of these podcasts why is this game the first game of the playoffs? Well, this is going to be one here in Division III, Hancock versus Houghton on Monday night at Michigan Tech.
Well, throw the records out the window. You know, Houghton's had some success against them last year. In my mind, Hancock has been the class this season. But as I mentioned, Houghton's knocked them off a couple times, including in overtime just last week. But this really is 2 teams that could go out, and whoever wins this game might just win the state championship, if not for another team up there as well, Coach Stas. And you're familiar with them, Calumet.
Yeah. I think all 3 of those teams, you know, especially come playoff time, any one of them can knock each other off. You know, I like Hancock. I mean, I like that. Like these kids that are on this team were part of the run at winning the championship a few years back, and they have such good goaltending and Carroll like that. Like, I think that's just maybe the little bit that might separate, you know, the Hancock from the other 2 teams up in that area. But I mean, I know back to what you guys said, and I haven't been here. I've watched your podcast. Yeah. Disappointing that Houghton's got to play Hancock because Corey Markham's done a great job with Houghton this year, and probably one of the 5 best teams in Division III without a doubt. I mean, and unfortunately, right out of the gate, you're going to lose one of those teams. You know, it's probably going to be a great game. Lucky for the people up there who are going to see it. It's too bad that people down here aren't going to see a matchup like that.
And another first game of the playoffs is going to be on Tuesday at the Mount Clemens Ice Arena. You have Warren DeOsel, the defending Division III state champs, going up against Liggett. We all feel the winner of this game could go for a nice long ride.
Yeah, I don't think there's any debate about it. I think De La Salle, you know, they play that MIHL schedule, and that really bodes well for you come playoff time, no doubt about that. Liggett is a team we've talked about for a while. That's a pretty darn good team. Personally, I think maybe that entire league doesn't get the love that they deserve. That's going to be a tough matchup for the defending champion Pilots.
And you know, we played them right out of the gate last year. Liggett is a really good team. They brought most of those kids back. I think they brought back like 18 or 20 kids from the team a year ago. So it's going to be a really tight game. I mean, I like Liggett. I mean, with their depth and stuff, but De La Salle that MIHL schedule is still, you know, it's a huge advantage for them going into the playoffs. It was a year ago. I'm sure it will be again this year.
And a likely Division III regional final is Detroit Country Day and Flint Powers. Flint Powers has been on a little bit of a skid. Do you feel like this will definitely need a pick-me-up, or they're going to be gone?
Travis Perry has done such a good job for such a long time that I remember they started to slide a little bit. I think it was a couple of years ago, and then he kind of got it back. He's done such a good job for such a long time that, you know, he's one of those guys that I think some people are sitting there going, okay, when's the next step going to happen? Could be this year, but that's going to be a tough one. Detroit Country Day, I've heard some people talk about their schedule a little bit. I don't think it's been that bad, but when you have a goaltender playing as well as Sam Avola has been playing, you can beat anybody.
Yeah. I know, like, in past podcasts, we talk about Will Tragey and what a good goaltender he is. Sam Avola has had as good a season. He's been lights out for Country Day. I mean, just incredible numbers if you look at him. Having a goalie like that is obviously, we just talked about Lethman a second ago, a few years back with Farmington. Having a goalie like that is definitely one of the key ingredients to make a run in the playoffs and to make it to the USA. So, at the same time, you talk about Flip Powers, what they might have going for them this year is in years past. I mean, like last year, they were the overwhelming favorite going in.
Yep.
I mean, they had such a good season.
Yep.
This year, maybe this little slide, maybe this might be like a little blessing in disguise for them because they don't maybe have the expectations they've had in year past. So we'll see what happens.
And we're going to talk about sleepers who we think could make a long run here in the playoffs. My sleeper, and Stats also agrees with me, could be Riverview Gabriel Richard. Riverview Gabriel Richard played a tough schedule, so I think this will benefit them of making a long run. They have a tough regional final possibly against Woodhaven, and then they could play Chelsea in the quarterfinals.
That's a great selection. Especially that side of the bracket. I think that side of the bracket is where you could see some strange things happening because I think there are a bunch of teams that could really, stake the claim for coming out of that side of the bracket.
And I like Gabriel Richard too. I mean, I know having Todd Johnson, a guy with lots of experience, playing in the Final Four, getting the state championships, like that's only going to help. And it was such a young roster a year ago, and they played a tough schedule, and they brought everybody back. I mean, it's pretty much the same team they had a year ago. They've had some big wins this year. I mean, they beat the Division III defending state champs early in the year, 1-0, De La Salle. So I like them. I think that they might be one of those teams that we could definitely see at USA.
So, Sean, who's your sleeper?
I have Forest Hill Central. John, we talked about them the last couple of weeks. Young team. They took their lumps early in the season. They lost their first 7 games. All they've pretty much done is win since then, including knocking off Granville just this past weekend in overtime. I think Coach Zaschek, Coach Beaufet have done a fantastic job. It wouldn't surprise me if they ended up at USA Arena. I'm being very sincere when I say that. They've been very close the last couple of years. They took their lumps. That's a really good team.
And they got West Ottawa here on Wednesday, and you'll see the highlights on State Champs on Sunday at 9 a.m. here on Fox Sports.
Isn't he great?
That's a good
Isn't he
plug.
great with the plugs?
Oh,
Great
yeah.
Total pro.
And also with Gabriel Richard, I know Coach Ricky DeSanta really well. He has a nice restaurant in Wyandotte called Captain's. So you got to go out and get a nice dinner there
you
in
go.
the Captain's. So good start here on the State Champs Power Play podcast, and we'll be right back. And it's presented by National Coney Island and by Northwestern Tech, the HVAC school that works.
Time-starved? Budget-starved? Just plain starved? Get to National Coney Island. Come in any time of the day for a great meal served the way you want it. Fast, fresh, friendly. At National Coney Island, you'll find some of the best specials in town. Something for every taste and appetite. All made with top-quality ingredients, prepared to delicious perfection, and served up at a price that won't break the bank. Welcome to National Coney Island.
When you graduate from Northwestern Tech, heating and cooling companies take notice. And getting noticed is nice, but even better when it comes with respect.
With a demand for HVAC techs and the type of money you can make in this industry, skilled tradespeople are getting the respect that they deserve.
Hands-on training, experienced instructors, and thousands of Northwestern Tech graduates.
In just 10.5 months, you can have the career and the respect you deserve.
Northwestern Tech, the HVAC school that works.
And welcome back to the State Champs Power Play podcast presented by National Coney Island and is also brought to you by Northwestern Tech, the HVAC school that works. I'm Jonathon Kidd along with Sean Belegian and Craig Staskowski. We're going to go to Division 2 of our regional preview. We're back to our theme. First game of the playoffs. Livonia Stevenson against Plymouth. Tuesday night, Eddie Egger Arena. We have talked at numerous lengths about this. And now the game is now upon us. Sean?
Plymouth could win this game. Make no mistake about that. I think this is Coach Vento's best team that he's had. And it's a shame for he and his staff because they've done such a good job building it up to this point. I think it's also unfortunate for them that this is, in my opinion, Coach Mitchell's deepest team. And that it's a very unfortunate set of circumstances. I just think too much depth for Stevenson. And it's a crying shame because, in my humble opinion, I think Plymouth is the type of team that could go win the entire D2. I really do.
Well, we have talked that the winner of this game is going to go for a nice little run here.
Absolutely.
And Craig, you've seen both these teams. So what's your opinion about this game coming up on Tuesday?
I mean, I'm in the same boat as you guys as far as I can't believe that this is the first game out of it. I mean, like, it's probably this year the two best teams in Division II playing each other right away. And I agree with the assessment on Plymouth. Like, they got the goaltending. I mean, they got everything. Like, this Plymouth team, without playing Livonia Stevenson out of the gate, I could easily see myself pick them to be in the finals or win it. And unfortunately, like, I mean, they're going against Livonia Stevenson, who, let's be honest, it's not only a great team, it's a team with all kinds of experience. They've done this year after year after year, and they're, the way Coach Mitchell sets up this team, it's to make the run in the playoffs. I mean, that's and so it's unfortunate. I think it's gonna be a great game for those of you guys who go out and watch that game. You're gonna be really lucky. I think you're gonna be extremely entertained, and it's, I don't want to say it's a state final because there's other good teams in Division II, but it's going to be one of the best games of the entire state playoffs. It's going to be a great game, but I really like Livonia Stevenson on Tuesday.
And what's going to take Plymouth? Is it going to take that top line of Chumley and all them to get a few goals, power play, a shorty here and there?
Listen, I think everybody in the region, and this is a tip of the cap to Livonia Stevenson. I think everybody wants to be the team to knock off Livonia Stevenson as well. I mean, honestly, to say we're the guys that did it. I think, as Craig mentioned, I think they've got the goaltending. I think they've, obviously they've got Chumley. I think there are two incredibly good defensemen on their blue line. I'm going to say it again. I wouldn't be surprised. My jaw wouldn't drop if Plymouth won that game. I make no mistake about that.
All right, we're going to be moving downriver now. A likely Thursday night pre-regional final between Trenton and Saline. The Trojan Pit, we know they're going to be out. They support our podcast. We got to give them the shout out.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys.
This is another one where the winner of this one, well, obviously we'll play the winner of the Stevenson Regional, but Saline could pull the upset off here in this one, too.
Saline is, there's two things to remember. Number one, they were the team that knocked off Churchill last year. A lot of people, yours truly included, thought that Churchill was going to make it to USA Hockey Arena. Well-coached team. I know, Stas, you're familiar with this guy. Paul Fassbender is a guy that, let's not forget, when Stevenson won the title in 2013, he nearly pulled off the upset of Stevenson when he was at Pioneer. And they pulled off the upset last year. So, definitely, this is another one almost in the mold of Plymouth and Livonia Stevenson, where would it really surprise anybody if Saline did it again? They've been playing hard against everybody. They just tied Plymouth, as you well know, just last week and everything. So I don't think anybody would be surprised, Stas.
No, I agree, but I just, again, I guess I'm big in the whole, like, Trent just plays on MHL. They play game after game after game, and I just think that eventually, like, it sets you up for this time of year. Sure. It really does. Yeah. And there's a reason why Trenton has been successful in the playoffs, like, as a program for such a long time. Would it surprise me? No. Like, Foz is a great coach. He'll have Saline ready. Hornets will be ready, and I like Trenton still. I think Trenton's they're definitely more than I know we got a stud up front, but they're pretty good all the way through their lineup.
Absolutely.
So. Now let's talk about our sleepers. My sleeper is up in the Yooper. The Flivers, as Sean likes to...
Love that name.
Love that name. Kingsford. Name. Sean, is it going to be Kingsford at your
I am going to take him. I ranked him a couple weeks ago, and talking to a bunch of guys, a lot of people... I remember when Coach Mitchell was in here in early January. This is when we were still doing just the audio, and we were talking about Kingsford. And you know what? They just keep winning. Yeah. And they're not just beating people; they're pounding people. So and you take a look at some of their wins, and like Coach Staskowski was just talking about, when you play those teams over and over, whether it be Calumet, whether it be Holt, whether it be Hancock, you just get yourself playoff ready. So, they've had a fair share of some teams that maybe, were a little less than, but they've played some tough games, and they've come out okay. So it wouldn't surprise me if they ended up there at all.
My sleeper's Davison. Coach Doug Toller, one of the probably most underrated coaches in the entire state. He's been there forever. Went through a time period where maybe the players weren't going through, but if you look at the early 2000s, Davison was a fixture at CompuWare. Like, they were in the Final Four there for a while. So he seems to have that type of team again this year, and I guarantee you, if they end up playing Brother Rice in the quarterfinals, which kind of might look like, you'll have that team ready. So,
what about a team like Forest Hills? Could that be another sleeper?
Well, I have them, without giving it away, I'm going to give it away. I have them going back. I mean, they have been a mainstay at USA Hockey Arena in recent years. You have to give them absolute credit. And, this is another team that has been there, has done that. A lot of those kids have returned to the team. They're obviously well coached, an NHL type guy in there and everything. So, John, to me, do I even call Forest Hills a sleeper? Because, they've kind of been a mainstay now at USA Hockey.
And I think that they obviously, around the state, that you look at their schedule and the teams they played outside of the West Michigan area, teams wanted to play them. So, so other programs know that this is a team that you want to play against. They knew the type of players they have, that they were returning. And, they've done pretty – they're over 500 with the schedule they play, which is pretty impressive. So, I mean, not to give out too much either, but I also have going.
We'll just keep it right. We'll stop right there. You're watching and listening to the State Champs Power Play podcast, presented by National Coney Island, and it's also brought to you by Northwestern Tech. I'm Jonathon Kidd, along with Sean Belegian and Craig Staskowski, our special guest today. We are now moving to Division I, and we're going to keep that theme of the first game of the playoffs, and it's going to be on Monday night at the USA Hockey Arena, Detroit Catholic Central against Northville.
I love Clint Roberry. He's one of my favorite people. I think, he's done such a good job at Northville. This CC team is just too good. I mean, that's honestly, I have no other way to say it. I've said it in so many different ways. I guess all I can do is repeat myself. This is just a deep, incredibly well coached, disciplined team. There isn't a weakness anywhere, and whoever they play is going to have a tough time with CC.
And I agree. They're deep. It's everything with them. I mean, they're that good. And truthfully, I feel Northville's had some better teams here in the last few years. Like this, when we talk about like Saline and Trenton, if Saline beat Trenton, how we wouldn't be surprised. Northville beat CC. I think I'd be shocked. CC's that good.
Yep.
So I know Northville's been a team that's been in the top 10 pretty much the entire year in Division I, but I think there's some separation there.
Is it going to take a John Leffelman type performance? Like Sean and I talked last week on the podcast, in order to beat CC, it will take a funny hop, a garbage goal. You feel like that's going to be the case, or they just have to play trap like Stevenson did against CC a week back.
The only thing when you look at CC's games, they're not a volume shooting team.
Mm-mm.
You look at, they're not out shooting teams. You'll see some games around the state where teams are putting up 50, 60 shots. Like CC, they're right around 30, 35 shots a game. They just do everything they do so well.
Comes in waves.
Yeah, I don't know if there's any gimmick that's really going to slow them down. They play hard in the hard areas. I mean, they're a team built to make this run in the playoffs.
A likely matchup in the regional final, we don't know until it all plays out, but it's looking like it could be West Ottawa and Granville. Year after year in the last 5 to 6 years, you always see Granville. How strong of a program they have been out on the west side of the state over the last few years.
Brazil has done an amazing job with that program. I think it was one of the things where, Joel had, they were kind of up and coming, and they were beating some teams, and what he's done since then. They're the class of West Michigan right now. I mean, they. I feel that they can almost play with anybody in the state. They really can. I know his son's a really strong player for him. I like Granville. I think as far as that top part of the bracket there, like they're gonna be tough to beat. West Ottawa's, they're kind of working their way up as far as like the different tiers with the OK. Just Granville's been there year after year after year, and then Granville's playing way better teams outside of the league too. So
you nailed it. To me, Granville, as Coach Staskowski said, John, they've said anybody, anywhere. And before it was come play and play, golly gee, really tough. But you know what? They're beating teams now. They played so hard against Stevenson, nearly knocked them off. They knocked off Rice. And in turn, I think it's made the West side kind of get its shop in order. You've seen West Ottawa take a step up. We mentioned Coach Zaschek, Slobodnik at Grand Rapids Catholic Central, Grand Rapids Christian. You're seeing these programs kind of become usual suspects in their own right on the West side, and that's cool to see.
Another likely regional final. Staz is getting a smile on his face here. It could be Orchard Lake, St. Mary's, and Brighton. We always talk that everyone forgets about Brighton. The winner of this game will definitely be going to the Final Four. I'm going to say right now.
Yeah.
Sean, do you agree? Like the winner of this game is going to.
John, I'm doing it again. I am. This Orchard Lake team is so good. I think
they almost beat CC over the weekend too.
Yeah. I think this is their best team in a while. But how on earth can you pick against Brighton? Yet it seems every year people pick against Brighton. Just, la-di-dee, la-di-da. They just go about their business, and the next thing you know, there they are.
I think like it's playing right into Brighton's wheelhouse that Orchard Lake's making this run. Because here we go again. And I'm going to tell you, like you probably talked to a bunch of people, and you've seen Orchard Lake. Orchard Lake's loaded. They are such a good team. Yeah. They got the goaltending. They got everything. You saw they challenged CC. They're the team that could probably, maybe Livonia's teams, like those are the teams that could challenge CC, like probably in the state. Like I don't know if there's anyone else that could, necessarily even plays to that level. And like Brighton, they've gone about their business, and we know what they're going to do in the playoffs. They are as well coached as any team is year in and year out. And it's Orchard. I'm telling you, Orchard Lake has got to be cringing that here we are again in a regional final, and we're going to play against Paul and Kurt's team again.
Don't you love how he did that, too? Because it said so much in one. Yeah. Brighton. I mean, really, that's all you have to say. Brighton.
We talk about Stevenson. We talk about Northville. We talk about all these public school programs. It seems like Brighton is always left out. I do feel in the last 10 years that Brighton is the best public school hockey program in the state of Michigan.
I don't know how anybody could argue that.
Can't argue it.
I think if you had Coach Robert in here and Coach Mitchell in here, they'd both shake their head yes. Absolutely. I mean, tremendous job by Paul and Kurt, that entire staff. I mean, they just have a machine out there.
Let's talk about sleepers. I feel a sleeper could be Utica Eisenhower. They beat Saginaw Heritage at the showcase. They could be facing each other in the quarterfinals. They've had a great year in the MAC. I don't know. I just have this gut feeling like we could see them in the Final Four or possibly in the state championship game.
Without giving away too much, I have them in the Final Four. I went with Saginaw Heritage and J.J. Bamberger. You've seen him do it in all the divisions. Saginaw Heritage has been all over the divisions in the past 5 years. But I think that's a team that you've seen them kind of kick it up a notch with the schedule as well. But that's going to be my sleeper. I'm going to take Saginaw Heritage.
Stas, you have a smile on your face.
People who know me are going to they're going to kind of laugh because of the battles that we had. But I'm going to go with Lake Orion and Nick Field. I got to play against a lot of Nick's teams in the playoffs, and they outed us, I think, 3 times, I think, when I was at Rochester United. They are a very difficult team to play come playoff time, just the way they're coached, the way they play. And I see, Eisenhower being in that bracket, there's them playing Detroit Skating Club, and I don't know if they're going to play on the Olympic sheet or if they're going to play on the NHL size rink, but if they play in the Olympic sheet, that's something that Lake Orion does all year long.
Big factor.
It's an advantage.
Yep.
You're watching and listening to the State Champs Power Play podcast. It's presented by National Coney Island and is also brought to you by Northwestern Tech, the HVAC school that works. And a reminder that you can also vote for the High School Hockey Player of the Year at statechampsnetwork.com. You got plenty of time. We got a few more weeks until the voting ends. Now to our favorite part of the show. Our predictions for our Final Four and our state champions this year in Division 3, 2, and 1. Stas, I'm going to start with you first.
All right. Division 3, I see Riverview Gabe Richard, who is my sleeper. I see them getting to the Final Four where they will match up with De La Salle. I have Hancock coming out of the UP, that just the gauntlet, and coming down and going to play Country Day in the other semifinal. I see a De La Salle Hancock final, and I think Hancock's got that Nordstrom's a dynamic player up front. They got the goaltending. Hancock's my champion.
Sean?
I just want it to be known Division 3 was the only one I got right last year.
Oh.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that. Look at my friend Craig. I have Chelsea. I have De La Salle. I have Hancock. And I have Detroit Country Day. I think they've the way they play in their back end with goaltending like that, you know what happens in the tournament. You get a hot goaltender, look out. I also took Hancock. I think Hancock has been pretty much the class of Division III all year long. And, I mean, when you go through that gauntlet up there, I got Hancock.
In mine, I have Chelsea against Liggett, and then Hancock against Flint Powers. Then I got Liggett against Hancock, and I do have Hancock winning the state championship.
Well, we go 3
Unanimous.
for 3 here. Yeah, all right.
All right, we're going to go to Division 2 now. I will start.
All right.
I have Heartland against Kingsford, and then Livonia Stevenson against Birmingham Brother Rice. And then in the state championship, I have an all KLAA state championship like we had in 2013, Heartland against Livonia Stevenson, and I feel that Livonia Stevenson will win its first state championship in 5 years. Sean, your prediction?
I am going Heartland and Forest Hills Northern Eastern. I think, again, they're just too strong on that side of the bracket. Stevenson and Rice, and like you, I am going with a Heartland-Stevenson overtime, one for the ages at 10 a.m. Get your behind out to USA Hockey Arena type of state final.
I didn't look at Sean's predictions beforehand, but I also have Forest Hills Northern Eastern playing against Heartland in the first semifinal. I have Brother Rice playing against Livonia Stevenson in the other. I think Heartland, Livonia Stevenson are going to be the finals, but this is where I'm going to change. I just feel I got to see a little bit like what happens with like your teams from the UP coming down, or last year Flint Powers and what they had to play to get to USA. Heartland's got what I look at as being maybe a little bit of an easier draw, and Stevenson's going to play a lot of tough games there, and it wears on you in that 2-week period. And I think this could be Heartland's year. This is probably not Ricky's best team, but at some point they're going to win. I mean, they've been there, they've been this close for so long. Yeah. So I think this is the year they break through.
And finally, we go to Division 1. Sean, I'll let you start the show.
I have Ike, Granville, Catholic Central, and OLSM. I think Orchard Lake, St. Mary's, they lost to Heartland, but obviously played the CC so tough. I think Orchard Lake, St. Mary's is really the last team that has a chance to beat them. I don't think it's going to happen, though. I'm going for a rematch of CC and Granville and Catholic Central to win the Class A. Boy, showing my age. Division 1.
Oh, we're not playing basketball here.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
Divisions here. I have Utica Eisenhower against Granville in the first semifinal, and then I have Detroit Catholic Central and Orchard Lake St. Mary's, and then like you, I have Granville and CC, and I have CC going up on top. And Stas, I'll let you finish it off.
All right, I'm going to go a little different here from you guys. I'm going to go with my sleeper. I think Lake Orion's going to get to the Final Four. Lake Orion's going to play Granville. I think that Catholic Central is definitely going to get there again. I think Brighton somehow, some way, like they always seem to do, is going to find a way to get back to USA. I like Granville getting to the finals over Lake Orion. I think Catholic Central is just too deep for Brighton this year. Brighton will play them good, but and Catholic Central is going to be the champion. They're, to me, the hands-down best team in all 3 divisions in the state.
Our predictions will probably be wrong.
Yeah.
And we'll be revising this throughout the next few weeks in the podcast. Craig, since you were here last week, we had Mark Verlucci on. He gave us the nice news that there could be the potential of seeding next year in the playoffs. Yep. What's your take of the potential change?
It's long overdue. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. Just this past week, Minnesota came out with their seeding, like they played their sectionals, and after the other sectionals, they see the 8 teams that win their sectionals in the 2 different divisions, and it sets up for such a great tournament. And I know that the MHSAA has some things that, they got to figure out the schedule. It being a 2-week tournament right now, it doesn't fit into like what Minnesota has, but it's long overdue. I mean, if we do, seed at the regional level, if they end up going to regionals, get rid of the pre-regionals, you have a regional of 8, 7, or 6 teams, and you seed those teams. That's a great start. I mean, obviously, it stops your Livonia Stevens from playing Plymouth in the first game of the playoff. Yep. And then it sounds like the next step would be that they would possibly reseed at the Final Four, which again pushes your best games to your Saturday games, which ideally is what you want, right? You want your best matchup showcased on Championship Saturday. So, if it happens, it gets through. Which I'm hoping. It seems like now's the time. It'll be a giant step.
Did it feel like it was this round of this year's first games that would put it over the top, the Stevenson, Plymouth, the CC Northville, up in the UP, or it was just it's time?
It's time. Like this has been going on year after year after year. I mean, we can go back and look at probably every bracket for the last 10 years, and it may be similar teams, it may not be, and I know a lot of it's got to do with location. You have some of the best programs in the same area. I mean, whether it be Northville and CC who are right next door to each other. Like I know years that we, when I was at Rochester, I think it was us, Dakota, and Eisner were all ranked in the top 10, and we were all in the same pre-region. It's time. I think that they are more open to it now than they've been in the past. I think other sports have obviously started that conversation, and all you can hope for now is that happens.
Craig, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you guys for having me. It's the best time of year.
Yep.
It's the most fun to talk about, and I'm glad I was able to do it with you guys.
And just lastly, quickly, what has been the coaches' responses to our podcast?
Oh, it's nothing but positive. This is great. You guys have done just an absolutely phenomenal job for the sport of hockey and at the high school level. I'm glad that some coaches and programs are getting recognition, not just from the Metro Detroit area, but from around the state. I think you guys do a great job of keeping yourselves informed and spreading the word, and it's only going to help our sport out.
All right. Good luck to you guys in the regionals, and we'll talk to you guys next week.